what's up, Mob Crew? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today's show, we're going to be going over the Daniel Robinson case. We covered it on Friday. Today, we have a special guest, Steve from True Crime Web, who is a forensic expert, has some great insight on this case, and we're going to kind of focus on the car wreck. I found a video, which I'm so happy I found. It actually shows the items that were recovered from one of the private investigators that was holding the evidence at the time. So, and they kind of do a close-up of the vehicle, which I've never seen. So I'm excited to play that video for you guys. And then he kind of uncovers the clothing that they found. I don't think he shows all of it, but it's something I've never seen. Maybe some of you guys have, but I think it's an interesting video, and we'll play that, and we'll go through just a little bit of the timeline for anyone that's not interested, that's not familiar with this case. And then if we have time, I've got a little bit more. I dug into one of the people that are kind of interested in, which is Billy, which we kind of covered a little bit on Friday, and I uncovered a little bit more interesting info on him. So if we get time, we'll save him for last. But go ahead and introduce my co-host. How you doing, Steve?
Doing fine, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. For those that may be new to Steve, you want to give just a short background about yourself?
Sure. I'm retired law enforcement. During my career, I had all different types of training, became a state certified crime scene investigator, technician, and I've investigated everything from minor crimes to homicides.
Amazing. We've had you on. We try to do it just about every Monday, and there's always, you broke down the Murdaugh case, just looking at some little diagrams, and you put together that the reenactment quite well, and it's pretty much what the prosecution ended up had kind of the same story that you put together. So quite amazing. So if anybody's new to his channel's pinned at the top, and then also we band together because we're on a mission to help the missing and cold cases. If you want to do heavy donations or any donations, there's a nonprofit. Steve's part of a nonprofit organization. He's got a website. It's also pinned at the top, and I will put it in the description at the end once we get done. But it's pinned at the top for you, his channel and the website.
Thank you.
So, yeah. All right. So let's get started. Before we get on to Daniel Robinson, we always like to get back by featuring the missing. So today we have Cara Cox. She went missing last month, May 15th. Actually, last year. Now, sometimes I see these as mistakes. I don't know if this is last year, but we'll just go with what's on the paper. It says May 15th of last year. She was traveling in a semi westbound with her boyfriend in the States. I guess they were clearly hitchhiking. He left her at a truck stop in Flagstaff, Arizona. Her car was found at a truck stop in Seminole, Oklahoma. So she's 41 years old, 5'5", 120 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. If you have any information about Cara, it's 405-257-5445. And we got one more here. And so this is Michaela Stanridge, last seen in Concrete, Washington, of this year, April 21st, approximately 5 a.m. Not much details, but it says she's a 25-year-old mom of one, last seen running out of a home she was staying at in Concrete, Washington, while attempting to call 911. Oh, interesting. That's not good. So if you have any tips, you can always call your local law enforcement or 1-800-222-TIPS. All right. Okay, so we'll get started here, and we'll go over just a brief timeline, and then we'll kind of focus on the crash and what they recovered, And then I've got his, so basically there's a black box in his vehicle, his Jeep Renegade. I think it was 2016. They retrieved that. I've got the last few trips that are recorded on his black box. I've got them plugged in. And so we'll definitely take a look at that. Just quick shout out to all the mods who are doing a wonderful job. Karen, Molly, Copper Horse, D-Dez. I appreciate everybody. Michaela, Jennifer, I think she's busy on Mondays. She has her son. So shout out to all them, and then shout out to the members. Thank you very much for supporting this channel. And just quickly get this out of the way. And Badger Mama, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. You are so awesome. Okay, get caught up in the comments. All right, let's see. Here we go.
I'll give you a blue light like Mrs. Steve does when anybody donates.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, working at tandem. Yeah, I need a Mrs. Steve. My goodness. Yeah. Oh,
get you a blue light special there. Appreciate your supporters, Chris.
Yeah, yeah. And that on Mondays we try to split everything, so that goes. We try to split that up, so that goes right to the foundation. So thank you so much. So Daniel, just a little bit of background about Daniel. 24 years old when he went missing. Black male, 5'8", approximately 165 pounds. He was born without his right hand and part of his right forearm, but he did not let him. This didn't stop him from accomplishing his goals, playing video games, and learning the trumpet, which is amazing. He began his career as a hydrogeologist and was excited for the future. He recently moved out to Phoenix. He was hired on by Matrix New World, working as a field geologist right after graduation. His sister, Devisha, she also lived in Phoenix. And then Daniel, this is interesting because I think this could come back in some way. Daniel was also had a side job as an Instacart driver. So for those that are not familiar with Instacart, that's kind of like DoorDash, pretty much the same thing. They handle groceries and some other things like that. So I think it's, but yeah, and that was back in 2021. So he did have that as a side gig. Then we kind of moved closer to his missing date. So on June 12th, so just about a week and a half before his disappearance, he met a woman named Caitlin while delivering for her. So he was delivering through Instacart. They had two exchanged numbers. He kind of got, kind of fell for her, but unfortunately, she was not feeling the same way. He ended up kind of showing up at her house unannounced. She didn't really like that. There's some text messages. We kind of looked at a few there on Friday, but unfortunately, he felt one way, she didn't, and unfortunately, he kind of pushed it a little bit by showing up unannounced. She didn't like that. So apparently, after this incident, which they kind of ended their communication just 2 days before. I think it was a day before, I think was his last text message to her, which is a weird text message. We'll look at that. But clearly, this could played a role in him acting differently because before he went missing, he started acting different according to his coworkers and friends. He seemed down, talking weird. So then we move on to the day that his father sadly talked to him the day before on the morning of June 22nd, which was a Tuesday. David Robinson is his father. And then June 23rd, the day he went missing. So he stopped at a local gas station, which is a Shell gas station. And if we get time, we'll look at the map. Actually, we will look at the map. And then he was meeting his coworker, Kenneth, at the job site. Now, apparently, according to Kenneth, he showed up around 9 a.m., but we'll find out that it's a little bit later than that. But according to Kenneth, he says he saw Daniel about 9 a.m. He showed up and he seemed different that morning. his unusual self, but Nate made no comments about harming himself or others. He only stuck around for approximately 15 minutes and then left. And Kenneth had reached out to the boss, noting that Daniel had left and thought it was he had odd behavior. And then I believe, so let me just go through this here. So Daniel's basically apparently last seen by anybody was Kenneth leaving the job work site. And that was just after 9 a.m., according to Kenneth. And then his father would end up actually putting out a missing persons report after not hearing from him, and the coworkers, trying to reach out but couldn't get a hold of Daniel. So then we move on so according to the police report, Daniel's coworker Ken was made aware that Daniel had not been located yet. He also informed that Daniel had not contacted any family member. Ken got in his vehicle and began searching for David. Ken told the police that the road runs north and south. So the road he's talking about, so this is their job site. On Friday, I actually had it in the wrong spot because I've seen a couple of people have it here and over here, but actually job site's up here. So this is the job site that he was supposedly last seen at. This is the road that they would head up and down. This is the north and south road. He talks about a T. And then obviously if you were going to come in or leave, this is the main highway that you would come in or leave. And this is the way in and out. But he had noticed on that day that he had seen David's tire tracks actually heading west, not east, which should be, if he was heading back home or wherever, he should have been going this direction. But he noticed that his tire tracks headed west for some time. So going back down in the notes here. Ken noticed Daniel's tire marks were going westbound, where that intersection turns into a vast desert terrain. Ken followed the path trying to find Daniel, but was unsuccessful. All right. So I think let's get to the video and then actually, let me get to the car and then we'll get to the video and then we'll get to you, Steve. I'm sorry. Just giving the background here. And so then they would look for Daniel, excuse me. They'd look for him with helicopters, a bunch of search parties. It wouldn't be till July 19th that they'd finally find something. So almost a month later, a local rancher would find Daniel's blue 2017 Jeep Renegade in a remote area, not too far from the job site. It's actually, I think it's about 2 miles south of the job site. It was found in a ditch. According to that day, there was at least 3 known rainstorms that day, which is interesting. As a matter of fact, the coworker Kenneth had mentioned that it was raining when Daniel showed up. The car was found on the side in the ravine. It was found a few miles away from the last known location of Daniel. What was found was a pair of jeans inside out, 2 brown work boots, a faded orange vest with company logo, a t-shirt, 2 socks that were inside out. There was some red paint found on the car, which we'll talk about that. However, authorities did not do any forensic testing at the scene. There was no sign of blood, despite the wreckage, which looks pretty severe. Not long after the car was found, it was brought into Jeff McGrath, who was the private investigator who was brought on, and it's kind of been the face of this for quite a while. But I don't think he's working with David anymore, the father. So initial thoughts, Steve, just with everything.
Well, just hearing that the pants are inside out is something that I find extremely interesting. Is that something that is his normal undressing routine, or is that something where someone else undressed him?
Right.
For the fact, just pulling them down and straight off, they may come off inside out. But that would have to be something that the family would know or whenever they processed his residence and looked at his other clothing articles. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on, as you described, that he had that relationship in his mind, and how strong a relationship was that, and how much, what was his mental state, and had he done that before on other relationships, and how did he handle those? There's a lot of stuff that you would have to speak with the family to get a clearer picture of how he handled rejection.
Great.
Some people
Yeah.
handle it well. Some people get rejected quite often, and they handle rejection well. Some people don't.
Yeah.
And I don't know as far as Daniel how he handled rejection.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I think of Genes Inside Out, yeah, two things come to mind. The one that you mentioned, was he dead and somebody just took his genes off, and I would assume they would probably come off inside out. Or I know the only time when my genes end up inside out or something similar is if I'm in a rush. You know what I mean? Or if you're on fire, if you just. Oh, okay. Well, I'm just speaking of experience. I've had to get out of my jeans, and sometimes you throw them and you're going real fast. Anyway,
the only time that my clothing ever is inside out is if it would be in rain. And you said it did rain.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Wet.
So,
oh God, yes.
So that might explain that if they're extremely wet, and as the fabric is more, I don't know what not adhesive. There's probably a better term for it, but adheres to the skin and friction, that they will turn inside out. But that's the only experience I've ever had really with my clothing being turned inside out.
Yeah, and I'll explain I have because I have like three theories on I think there's kind of three main theories. Either he ran away, it's a crime scene, or it's an accident and he's just somewhere. He just, I think that's the three main ones, as something bad happened, accident, or he ran away and somehow staged this. But anyway, sorry, I'm reading the chat. But yeah, Steve does great. Oh yeah, second I talked to Steve about this case, because we haven't talked about this case together. Second I told him some things. Immediately we're talking about. He brought up the fact of the airbag and the residue, which we're going to get to here in just a minute. I'm excited because like I said, I found this video that I was so excited to find. But before we get there, we're almost there. So of course they found this vehicle, and we'll look at it here in just a second. But this is where it was found. So it was found kind of 2 miles south of the job site, kind of southwest, but more or less just about almost directly south of the job site, which does confer with the tracks going west. And sorry with all the mouses. Apparently I'm not the only one this happens to. Now, there's many things that were strange with this car, but we'll just point out a few for right now. We have a video that talks about more, but Jeff McGrath, the private investigator, former private investigator, he downloaded the car's airbag module and black box. He noticed that the car was started at least 40 times after the airbags were deployed. Now, you made a great point, Steve. This car's laying on its side.
Yes, a lot of the newer vehicles that have electric fuel pumps, they're designed in certain crashes that they'll kick off, and at least that's where a lot of experience we had with our patrol vehicles, that they would even kick off in some of our violent maneuvers. If you pull enough G's, they would kick off. But and that's for the fact of a safety hazard, that if the vehicle is overturned and as long as the ignition is on, the fuel pump would continue to pump fuel. And if there's a fire, electrical sparks, or anything that could create a fire, if the ignition is still on, it would be pumping raw fuel into the wreck. And so they put those safety features on a lot of models, and I'm sure it's on this one also, so that it would kick off. And once you're in such a crash like that, the airbags are deployed, the fuel pump is kicked off, and it's not going to start.
Interesting. Sorry, the motorcycle was going by, so I kicked myself on mute there. Let it be. Find Daniel Robinson. Yes, almost coming up on the 2-year anniversary. God, there's tons of anniversary. Summer Wells. Yeah, so sad. So here's a look at the car, and like I said, I've got a video where he kind of does a walk around of it, which, like I said, I was really excited to find this because I've never seen it. But let's just look at the items that were found inside and outside. So found inside first, the keys, his cell phone. I'm assuming it's a cell phone. They don't identify it, but I'm assuming it's his cell phone. School ID, backpack with laptop, toe straps, case of water, various other personal belongings, which you can tell in one of the photos. It looks like there's like almost like a shipping box, just a brown package box. Maybe it's something you use for Instacart or something. I don't know, but I did notice you can kind of see that in the picture. Now, outside the vehicle, we have, according to the records, 2 socks, 2 boots, jeans. Keep in mind, inside out with the wallet inside the jeans in the pocket. ID and other contents were inside the wallet. Now, they say shorts, but I wonder, could they mean boxers or underwear? Because it just says shorts. So that's just my idea, because you have just about everything else except underwear. So I wonder if these shorts are actually underwear. Just a theory. Shirt, which we'll look at, orange reflective vest, and then of course the other contents inside the wallet, which I'm assuming maybe money and other cards or whatever. Anything on that, Steve? Or
yeah, we'll discuss some about the impacts to the windshield, because there appears to be some distinctive impacts on the windshield. And as we were speaking prior to that, if you was looking at the windshield, you could reconstruct the sequence of each of the windshield fractures of which impacts occurred at one point or even after. That wouldn't make sense. So the windshield itself should tell a story. And I'm sure that some of the accident reconstructionists have looked at that.
Marley's mom, Renegade, is in the chat. Him and I have studied this case together since the beginning. Okay, wow, this is cool. Let us know if you have any questions. We will answer to the best of our knowledge. First question: does anybody know if they have tested the clothing for airbag residue? And this is coming from Steve. So all credit goes to Steve if they have or have not. Steve's got some that's cool, because I saw Renegade in here. Honored to have you in if you guys are big covering this. And please correct me if I get anything wrong in this, because I've been familiar with this case, but I've just barely, this is my second time deep diving in this case. And I'm sure as anybody make mistakes, and there is a bunch of conflicting things, like where the job site was. I kind of messed that up the first time I reported. So yeah, let's play that video, and then let's look at the clothing and talk about, because this was what really exciting that I was able to find. I'm sure those guys have probably seen it.
And sped up right before impact. They also say the driver may have tried to jump a ravine. Also, new details show the ignition was turned on more than 40 times right after the crash. So some new information tonight. Joining me now, Jeff McGrath, the private investigator hired by the family to help with this case. Jeff, it's good to see you again. You had already known some of the details about what was going on inside this car before the crash, yes. But let's go through a few of these to catch people up. The car sped up right before the SUV crash. There were 40 ignition cycles after the crash.
No.
So what does that indicate to you?
Well,
I think we need to get a hold of father, see if we can offer our assistance. I'll have to reach out to Gisela. Yeah, that should have been tested.
For starters, the car did not speed up right before the crash. I don't know where this investigator got this information.
All right, I'm gonna skip this. I want to get right to the good stuff. We could probably come back to this. The main thing he mentions is the 40 start. That's odd. And then some contradictory. There's 11 miles that are unaccounted for, according to police. When they researched that, I guess when they called the dealership, they said that can happen. You can get a discrepancy. They've said up to 100 plus miles. I don't know if that's true or not. He kind of thinks that's odd that the 11 miles discrepancy. So I'm no expert. I don't know. But let's get to the video from Daily Mail. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Okay, so first what we're going to play is, it's not the exact same model, but I'm pretty sure it's the same airbags that are used in what Daniel's Renegade had. Oh, did I turn that? Oh, no, I just didn't have the volume on. So what you're going to see, that smoke is, you want to explain that, Steve? You may probably know that better than I.
Well, there's certain powders and
nitro. Oh,
yes, there's gas. The explosions of these things, and there's certain powders and residue, and some of them are irritants, and there's safety warnings about them, and they can cause rashes. But you see that white, almost fog-like mist inside the vehicle, and I'm sure that different manufacturers use different residue particles. But when the airbags are deployed, by the time that you come in contact with them, the airbags are already starting to deflate. And so that you're not hitting a solid brick wall, because it happens in extremely quick blink of an eye. And as you can see from here, but I actually identified a homicide suspect from an airbag that was in a crash when the driver attempted to do a James Bond maneuver and crash and attempt to flee. But unfortunately, he didn't survive. Once the airbags deployed, he was in
one of my investigators and I were out.
Sorry, Steve.
But the offender was able to be identified from the passenger side airbag, and so whoever was in the vehicle driving at the time, there would be a DNA profile more than likely on that airbag.
Interesting. So yeah, that's kind of wild. And so I think and I'm going to pronounce it wrong. It's like nitro oxide or something. There's something, that's one of the chemicals that's in it, and that can burn actually. And I think they've kind of fixed it over the years, obviously. But you can still get, depending on the vehicle and the model, but you can get, burns. But usually you get the residue from what I didn't do a lot of research, but what I understand is, yes, it'll get transferred on the clothing, skin. But more importantly for this case, the clothing, because we have the clothing, or they have the clothing. And apparently it can leave. Now, unfortunately, we'll see what clothing he had, or at least the shirt. He's got a black shirt. But it can leave like millimeter black spots. That's from the residue, from what little research that I did.
Plus, you'd have cross-contamination from his clothing, his fibers, his hair on the airbag, and then you would have the cross-contamination from the airbag fibers onto his clothing also.
Oh wow, yeah, because you're smacking that thing.
Oh yeah,
who knows? Yeah.
There's nothing good about an airbag. You don't want to be looking at an airbag eye to eye.
Oh, wow. Renegade says, haven't heard any testing on the clothing, but have suggested it. All right. Thank you, Renegade. Really appreciate it. Honored. I've not heard of you, but I will definitely check you guys out. And please, if I get anything wrong, please just correct me in the chat. But honored to have somebody that's covered, somebody that deep dives cold cases. I really appreciate having people come in that know more, done their research on this case. Trying to hide the comment. There we go. Okay, here we go.
Here, looking just around the desert for anything that would lead us to Daniel, and I saw this pallet over here that looked fairly new. It was brand new, as a matter of fact. Didn't have any water damage to it. So I was curious about this pallet, and as I parked here, we saw something in that creosote bush right there, and I came over. Look at it, and right here at the bottom was a faded, sun faded. It was originally a black Nike sock, athletic sock, and it's obviously had been here a couple months because the sun faded up the top side. But once we collected it and I compared it to the clothes that the Buckeye police recovered, it was one of Daniel's matching socks.
Okay, so there's definitely a test that I want to do like tomorrow, is to go out in the desert and see and put something out there and see how long it takes to get sun faded. I mean, I know it can take just a day or two because I mean, I used to ski out in the summer and my hat get faded. Makes me wonder, what the time frame is to get something faded. And I guess, obviously I'm sure there's certain degrees.
I want to know
like,
how far where he's at and how far that is from the crash.
Right. Yes. Cause I thought there was 2 socks together. They're all, 2 socks, 2 boots.
Well, I mean, if you buy a 6-pack of socks, I mean, they're all Nike socks. I mean, but does that show that he had additional clothing that he had and carried with him and dropped an article of clothing as he left the area?
Right. Just checking chat here. Molly says, Steve, great job at identification of bad person's fibers and hair bag, basically the transfer. Yeah. Agreed. Let's see here. So many. Oh, there's Jason Watts. An honor to have you in here, Jason. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in a while. We were out in Texas not too long ago and I wanted to reach out, but an honor to have you in the show. He's the one that led the team to find Brandon Lawson. Amazing guy. I've had him on the show a couple times. Would love to have him on the show again. Amazing guy. Great person. Honor to have you in here, Jason. A lot of people in here. Okay, keep going.
And this is what was recovered. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a little loud. I tried to turn it down, and I know Steve's going to go nuts. And I knew when I first saw this, Steve was not going to be happy. This guy's got the fan blowing I'm assuming towards him. So let's cross-contamination 101 out the window.
So there's his boots. T-shirt was dark. There's the T-shirt.
But okay, so I'm going to play this once, and then we'll break it down because I actually slow everything down so we can take a look better at it because there are some interesting things I want to point out. I'm sure you've seen some things.
His jeans were found inside out, just like this. His orange work vest was laid out there to the side. So anything above would have seen the orange vest, reflective vest off to the side.
We're both thinking the same thing. Yeah, how this helicopter, I'm assuming they'd had at least done 2-mile radius. And I was trying to find it. I actually had the photo of it, of where they supposedly grid searched, and I swear they flew over. And I understand this thing's in a ravine. I could see them missing the vehicle, but that vest, it's kind of sitting up on the hill. I mean, I don't know. They could have been, I'm sure it happens. This was the little thing that I found about the airbags and what you can get, from the gas. And 2 to 3 millimeter black dot smears from the airbag residue. So now I'm going to go ahead and slow this down, Steve, and there's no sound. So once it comes back on, if you want to talk about what's going on.
I mean, the cross contamination really doesn't matter at this point because everything's in the same bag. But it still would be possible to test it, especially if there's any of the airbag residue, which would tell a story, or even the glass, because when glass breaks, there's all different particle sizes, and
you would think that glass would get into something.
Oh yes, absolutely. And then what was the exit strategy and exit pathway out of the vehicle? Did he climb out the broken window on the driver's side? Did he go out hatch? Did he go out through the top? I don't know.
First thing I noticed was the.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
No, I was finished there.
Oh, okay. Kind of similar to Jason Laundrie. Yeah, that case is, I don't think I've covered that case, but yeah, he kind of went missing. I mean, Daniel Robinson, Jason Laundrie, and a few others, they all kind of go missing. Sadly, they got overshadowed by Gabby Petito. And yeah, but yeah, now this is, like I said, this is kind of interesting.
Picture that Mr. Robinson showed me where the vehicle was laying on its other side. And I saw this damage here as you look down with this mirror folded in. That's what I was saying. It didn't look right. It didn't match being tipped on the other side. And I saw this.
Now, he was handling the actual evidence, and that Steve was not happy. And I knew it when I saw the fan. Sorry to backtrack on that, but I knew the second I saw that video, I knew Steve wasn't going to be happy.
Windshield from these pictures, and this is from some blunt force coming inwards to it, like someone threw a rock or something to that. I don't know, but something hit this here, which broke this and spiderwebbed this out. This window glass is the only glass that's completely broken out on this entire vehicle, and this is the opposite side that it tipped on. There's panels in the roof. They're solid panels. There's no glass in the roof of this thing. So it's just there's release hatches inside, and you pull the release and then you pop the panels out, and that makes it almost like, I guess, a convertible. So this damage didn't look right to me. As we move around, this here, if you look low, this is probably the force that blew the airbags. Something, and it's only going to be about this tall. So it could be a boulder in the desert, but somebody ran into that with no braking at 30 miles an hour. Probably the vehicle probably jumped over it, went crazy, but all the airbags blew.
But there was no boulder, from what I understand. We'll look at it again at the where the crash was. I don't think there was a boulder in there. And I'm sure they would have noticed if that was a boulder that was hit. I'm sure we would know because there'd be paint and some transfer. I'll play a little bit more. I know, Steve, you've got some things you want to point out.
And they kept going.
Okay, so I'll pause. I'll back up here, Steve, and I know you're making a great suggestion. You want to start with the windshield?
That impact that you have on this side, earlier you showed the other side that had a impact that was also. I'd be curious to see the design pattern of you see that's where everything radiates.
Something to that.
In the center, you almost have like a little box, like a square hammer, a sledgehammer type of head.
Are we looking at the windshield or?
Yes, the windshield that he just pointed to there on the
big
driver's
one.
side. That center where it's all finely missed in the dead center.
Yeah.
There was something solid, and I'd be interested if that pattern is close to what was happened on the other side to see if it's a certain tool.
Oh, the one that's up to the top left.
That is on the passenger side.
Yeah.
Because there's two independent impact points
going inside the other way,
from outside to inside.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if they were made by the same type of instrument or just by random, but it would be interesting to see how close they match.
This guy's supposed to be an expert fan in setting things on top of each other, same bag. Yeah, I know. I know that's the shirt he wore at the job site. I was thinking the same thing too when I saw that. I was expecting something else. But yeah, I get he's wearing an orange vest. I guess if you're out in the desert, I guess it don't matter. You're going to get, you're going to probably just wear your rags, and is there anything else you want me to play the front bumper there? I've got some side by side.
This guy here is just a example that I could use for days and days of what that we're not going to be handling our evidence in any shape, form, or fashion. They make more than one brown paper bag, and we should make use of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's not funny. But my opinion was the other side of Ravine. Interesting. I said I can't wait to check out. Do you guys have channels? I'm sorry. The damage to the front of the Jeep, in my opinion, was the bottom of the ravine. Sorry. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Then there's one last part he's got in this video. I can't remember if there was anything interesting.
And then you pop the panels out, and that makes it almost. But somebody, and they kept going. So coming along this ridge.
Oh yeah, he stands right in the middle of the tracks. Yeah.
Daniel's vehicle would have entered this way at about a 45-degree angle down this ravine.
Yeah.
It's still on its wheels, and you can see some of the tire patterns still in there as it's digging into the ground.
So let's walk right on the tracks.
As he's coming this way, and you can see the creosote bushes are still pushed over where his vehicle has passed through.
Yeah, so it ends there, but I don't see a boulder at least going up to it. And maybe it could have just ended up how it hit funky at the bottom.
And looking at if a vehicle is doing rollovers, and I've seen rollovers. I've been in chases, high-speed chases, where vehicles have rolled over 10 or 12 times. And you'll have a lot of impacts where the edges of the vehicles, and you'll have a lot of damage to the vehicle itself that indicates there's rollover. And I don't know what the top of this vehicle looks like, but to see if
I think I got a picture of it.
Because whenever the top of these vehicles start hitting and they're hitting on the corners, you're going to shatter all the windows. And it's not just going to be one window. And so I don't know if there was ever a rollover of this vehicle, that if it ever tipped over at all, other than on one side.
Right. Yeah, it would be weird. Some people think it's staged. All you'd have to do to get the car there is push it down the hill in neutral. It's possible. It says that according to the black box and airbag, it's according to before the impact, it was going up to 33 miles per hour. I don't know if you could get it going that fast, pushing it down the hill.
Yeah. Most airbags, I think 25 and 30 mile an hour minimum.
Yeah, but it could have been a wreck before, and then you just push it and it does its thing or whatever. Possibly. I'm just going to take one more look at these clothing because I just saw something interesting. You can kind of see what's possible sun faded or dirt. You see that brown kind of on the right. Oh, I forget you can't see my mouse, but especially when he first pulls his shirt out, I think I have it in slow motion. Yeah, do you see? Oh, here we go. I'll pause it right there. You see it right there? There's some of it right there. And you will get one more look at it. There's a little bit more on the back side of the shirt. I think the shirt must have been, I'm assuming this is either sun fade or the dirt. It's kind of hard to tell.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be the dirt from the boots that he stacked on top of the shirt.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Gosh, yeah. 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 Gosh. Yeah, but you see how you can see it on the back of the shirt. I wish you would have turned the shirt around. So curious to see the entire.
Yeah, I mean, you can't any of the clothing articles. And how many times has he had them in and out?
And he puts it right on
how
the
dirty
boots.
were the boots to start with?
Gosh. Yeah. But it's interesting though to see that because, like I said, I hadn't seen the clothing kind of up close before. But it's too bad it's a black shirt. It's kind of hard to see black smears with a not good quality video with a black shirt. But it's still interesting. So go ahead and remove that. And just want to say I appreciate everybody taking the time. If you can, please hit the like button. And we appreciate all the new members and donations come in. Everything goes towards helping the missing. So, and if you're new to my channel or Steve's, please subscribe to Steve's channel. His is linked at the top. It's Steve from True Crime Web. I've got his YouTube channel pinned at the top there. So let's get back to the vehicles. So now, unfortunately, a lot of the vehicle photos are kind of far away.
Well, the good news is that from that angle, you could roll down the windows even on the passenger side and crawl out on the bottom side.
Yeah, you've got the back.
And evidently the battery was still, it was attempted to be started 25 times, they were still powered to the vehicle, so any electrical windows should have worked.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because according to them, he had to charge the battery to get the.
Well, if it'd been left on after 30.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But
and every time you're trying to start it, you're going to kill it.
But I'd be interested if any of the windows on the lower side were rolled down, such as possibly an exit route or path.
Yeah. So, and I forgot that was the one thing I wanted to pull up because there was supposedly, some red paint smear. But according to the Carfax record, the Jeep had been one prior accident before I think Daniel had it, and it did have supposedly front end damage. The only picture I could ever find of his car without the only car I could find before him missing is this one here. I'm about 90% sure it's his vehicle. It's got the same red, like on the black part of the hood. You can see the scratches are identical, or dirt or whatever that is. It's identical. It's got like diagonal. If I didn't have 20 mouses on my screen, I'd show you which one. This one here. God, StreamYard. So moving on. So let's look at some of the last phone calls that day, and then we'll look at his last movements as well. So, Kenneth did say that he arrived around 9 a.m. and then 15 minutes and he was gone. We will learn, obviously, he was a little bit off. It was more like 9:30. So we'll look at his last two phone calls. So according to his phone records, his last phone call he placed was at 9:28 to Kenneth. Yeah, write that down. Okay, if you're writing that down. It's a 38-second call. I'm going to assume that's him just about to arrive there. And I'll tell you why. Because he leaves the gas station at 9:07. Takes about 24 to 26 minutes to get from the gas station to the job site. So he would have arrived there. So that phone call would have came in about 5 minutes before he went missing. Or actually arrived at the job site. Excuse me. Most of the phone calls are to Kenneth or his job, Matrix. There's Steve from Matrix. There's Gary. I think it's Gary. So most of it's job-related calls, it seems like. So nothing that really kind of sticks out as, let's see. Okay, he deleted his phone call or his messages with Caitlin, is apparently what's in the notes down there. So here is his trip. So this is his last trip. So he had 3 trips that day, according to the Cellubrite record, so his black box. His first trip was from the apartment to his not his work site, but maybe like his job office, I'm assuming. Let me know in the comments, which is kind of like halfway. Then his second trip is from the job office to the Shell station. Then his last trip ever recorded from the car is at 9:07 to 10:32, where it ends up, where it GPS where his thing is located. Now, the drive from the Shell station to the job site itself should only take 24 to 26 minutes. Yet this entire trip is hour 25 minutes. So, these mouses are driving me nuts. I don't even know which one's mine. So this is one thing that's interesting. So if Daniel left at 9:07 from the gas station, he should have arrived at about 9:33 approximately. And it could have been a little bit later, but that's just approximately if he was on time driving. And then we had that phone call that comes in right around that time. That was kind of his last phone call to Kenneth, the coworker. Then the coworker says he was there for approximately 15 minutes. So if he was there for approximately 15 minutes, then we put him leaving at 9:48. Now, the drive from the crash site, I wish the detectives would have put in the notes how long it would took. It's only 2 miles, but when you're driving on a dirt road, that could take a while. So I would give anywhere from 10 to even 20 minutes.
24.1 miles from the Shell station to the job site.
Yeah. 24 to 26 minute drive.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And so, yeah, so if he drove to the job site, like I said, then he stayed there for 15 minutes, left at 9:48 and drove to the crash site. He should have arrived there at the crash site at about 10 a.m., which actually would have been on par. It just says phone. What is it? Something ends at 10:05. Yeah. So it appears Daniel's phone in the ravine stopped tracking at 10:05. Or let's see. Okay, it was in the ravine by 10:05, and then it stopped tracking at 10:32. So either it died or was turned off. So the time does kind of add up. But what's interesting is, in the Murdaugh case, we would learn all the starts and stops. We don't have that here, because this says like one trip, just like 9:07 to 10:32.
Do we know what he bought at the Shell station?
Apparently gas, $3.85. It's kind of odd. Yeah. Let's see what else is going on up here. Steve, it's 128-page police report. Yeah, that's what I've been pulling out. As a matter of fact, I got a lot of screenshots. Oh, interesting. With lots of discrepancies, but your expertise would be extremely beneficial to this case.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to getting Chris to send it to me.
Yeah. Oh, there's the bike. Let me play this latest clip real quick, and then we'll look at just a couple other things, and we'll get to some comments as well.
Also been looking from that forensics of the electronics that showed that someone was there in my son.
Okay, so this is a new update that just came out. This is an interview like a couple weeks ago that was released.
Apartment after he went missing. So around the timeline when my son went missing, there are two things, those key elements from that forensics of the electronics that showed that someone was there in my son's apartment after he went missing. I do believe foul play happened to my son, but I just know what that foul play means. To me, foul play can mean a lot of things. I still have hope and believe that my son is still alive. It is a matter of time that I find him, whether it's a rescue situation, but I will find my son alive. I really have faith in that.
Last time anyone saw him, he was leaving his work site. He was a geologist, young, vibrant, handsome, had his whole life ahead of him. And that whole scene right there, Arizona desert, he was leaving the job site. It was June 23rd, 2021, almost 2 years ago to the day. And he was on his way away from the well site, 35 miles outside Phoenix, driving his Jeep Renegade. Nothing seemed odd. Dad had spoken to him, right beforehand. Nothing seemed odd. And then no one heard from him again. And then that's what the Jeep Renegade looked like. And here's the strange part about that. Daniel's nowhere near that crash, okay? But all of his belongings are scattered outside, like his clothes, cell phone, keys, wallet, all outside the vehicle. And an expert that was hired by Daniel's dad, they found the data from the Jeep's computer, like the black box, said that somebody started that Jeep more than 40 times after the airbags deployed. And that someone drove it more than 11 miles after it first crashed.
So, yeah, there's 11 miles that are on it after the airbags deployed. But what was interesting is, I don't know if I went back far enough, is the recent update was that he believes that somebody went through his home after he disappeared. Somebody went through his apartment. And the other thing is, I'll pull up, and I've got it here, is there was some searches done on his computer, or Google searches. So it could have been on the phone, maybe computer. Some I could see being Daniel, and then some are weird. So some of the are, should I call her? Can you break a lease before it renews? Love changed me. Love is patience. 10 Commandments. This is the weird one. Delete Instagram account. Shooting Tempe, Arizona, one of the cities. Love is something you can't explain. Explosion. I'm okay to do the things I hate. But anything stick out to you that's a little odd?
Yeah, I mean, now you're saying that the vehicle, after the airbags deployed,
11 miles.
11 more miles.
There's 11-mile discrepancy. Now, according to the police report on their end, they said they called up the dealership, and they said, well, you can get discrepancies like that. So, like, I guess, so it's possible there was 11 miles. I mean, there was 11-mile discrepancy no matter what. But apparently, according to Buckeye Police Department, when they had called up the dealership, they said that, I don't know if it was Jeep or whoever, said that they do end up with those discrepancies. But
okay, yeah, that'd have to be something that would have to absolutely be answered, and see that after a 35-mile impact, was the in the black box, was the fuel pump also stripped, and then went through the procedures to reset the fuel pump, because a 30-mile crash should knock that fuel pump off. And so that would, if there's one crash and it's only one crash and it's just due to 11-mile discrepancy of some type of issue within the computer system, I can understand that this is the only crash. But if we have another crash somewhere else, that's extremely interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Some weird things for sure. And just kind of looking at chat here. Some apologies. Trying to keep up. But, we'll try to get to some questions here towards the end. I'm hoping maybe if we get a little time, we'll look at Billy, because Billy's my number one, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a great question. How did these two boys crash, take off their clothes, and no body found? Yeah. So just one possible theory. Let's just look at the crime, or the scene here one more time. So here's kind of the scene. I think this is probably the best photo here. You know, it's kind of sitting in the ditch. His clothes are sitting to the right. So one possible theory. It is just an accident. He left work. It was raining. So we do got to keep that in mind. It was raining. But he did supposedly like to smoke pot. Nothing against that. And I used to be a pothead for a couple decades, and I did like my little drives smoking pot. Did he go into this? He just, instead of turning, to go out, he turned in towards the desert at that T section. He did end up crashing right away. Then he got burned by this airbag stuff. Maybe even got knocked, had concussion or something. Got out of the vehicle, and maybe he took this is why I say take his pants off in a rush. And like I said, it's raining. So he takes his pants off, it's inside out. So he's taking everything off, which is a little weird because he's down to his underwear, if not pure naked, full naked mode. And then goes running off in the desert, which I will say, in fairness, with minus the clothes thing, that has happened before. It was Tom something, happened last year, where he got in a wreck on interstate. They believe from some kind of head trauma from the accident. He just left the scene of the accident. The lady went to go check on him, and he just got out of the car. The guy had, a bright future, was just graduated, no previous history of, mental illness. He just ran. He ran through a park. Last seen, headed west. They ended up finding his body in a river. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we found multiple victims that would have runoff from ravines, and you would find them in creeks where they were disoriented from some type of head injury, and got out of the vehicle and staggered or fell into a creek or in that condition and didn't survive. Sad.
Yeah. That's a great point. Daniel only purchased 1 gallon of gas. Why? That is a good question. Yeah. Keep the car from catching fire. That's interesting. Yeah. Certainly he didn't fill up his tank with 385, or I think it's 380 something. But yeah, he certainly didn't fill up a tank with I know gas wasn't much better 2 years ago. Jen Darcy, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. You are so awesome. Thank you so much. But then now we have the FBI that's getting involved from what we kind of understand. So obviously, with the FBI, what would it take for would an FBI? Sorry, trying to word this question right. I don't want to jump ahead. Would FBI get involved with just a missing case if it was just a regular missing case?
I would think for them to come into it, of course, they're a great resource, and law enforcement can ask them for a lot of different reasons. Sure. But it also could be something involving that is this some type of race-based crime, civil rights violation, an abduction, and for them to become involved in it. Or, I don't know what their involvement is. I don't know if what request was made of them.
Yeah. But would you, if you had to pick, would you say it's because, wouldn't they normally come in if it seemed criminal? That would more lean towards, the odds of it.
Well, yes. They, absolutely. You'd have to consider that the reason they're there is that was there something that is because we have hate crimes now, and is it something that's race based? Is there some evidence supporting some interaction with someone that might have a background in some of these radical groups that had contact with him? I don't know, but that would be answered through whoever had contact with him during this time period and his, but there's a lot of reasons the FBI could be involved.
Wyatt says there's a 1254 log on the info. I thought I saw something like that. I'll look into that in that page report and see what that is, because they have the Cellubrite, which is kind of like the black box, and Cellubrite and Infotainment, they're kind of together but separate entities at the same time. So yeah, I'll have to look at that. That's interesting. Geneva remembers which I can't remember the name of that guy, but yeah, I covered it on. What's kind of crazy is I kind of hinted I went through this valley that actually led to a river, which actually happened to be the river he was found in. It was kind of creepy. So I was kind of close on where he was found. 1 gallon of gas equal Jeep, which just empty every pocket. Oh, I see what you did. Okay, I got you. At the time he went missing, so 350 a gallon. So yeah, so he just put basically 1 gallon in. Thank you, Renegade, for that's awesome. Blue light special. Oh, you get the blue light there, Steve. Thanks. Daniel could have had change of clothes in the automobile, clothes inside out because of only one arm. Ooh. Oh. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. I have no idea.
That's a great point, though.
But yeah, that'd be something that the family would know, and you probably could find at his home.
Victimology.
With other articles of clothing.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Camilla, for the $50 super chat. That is so sweet. You guys are so awesome. Please show Camilla some love in the chat. That's so sweet. And a shout out to Henry Dog. I didn't get a chance to shout him out last time for the donation last Friday. Okay, a couple more things. Do you got about 30 more minutes, Steve? Or
I'm at your disposal.
Okay, that didn't sound too enthusiastic. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this Billy guy, because I found a little bit more about Billy, and I'll try to go through him fast here. But to me, he reeks of something, in my opinion. What in the heck is going on here? And then we'll kind of recap before we go here. Gosh. Let's see if I can, and I'll try to go through it fast. So apparently Bill comes out, and he came forward after the vehicle was found. So keep that in mind. This Bill guy supposedly works for Intertribal Marijuana Commission, as an IT director, and this is against marijuana, which I think is interesting because keep in mind, supposedly, Daniel smoked pot, and apparently he drove to California to pick it up. I don't know if that was all the time or if that was just occasionally, because the drive to California is only, I think, 2 to 3 hours from around that location. It's not far. Anyway, but you have this guy Bill that comes forward, and he supposedly runs into Daniel on the day he went missing. Now he says that he ran into Bill at about 11:30 a.m. So keep in mind he would supposedly already crashed. He was traveling through Bill was traveling through the Wash area, which I'll get one last thing before we go. We'll look at Google Earth. I've got everything labeled out. He was driving through the Wash, which does make sense, and I'll explain that. I'm sure Steve can as well, for a place to shoot his airsoft guns. Now they asked, hey, can you point out where you had seen Daniel? And he apparently pointed to this exact location, roughly, which happened to be not too far from where they found his Jeep, which is interesting. Bill went on to explain that Daniel had caught him off guard as he was coming around the corner. He described the Jeep as appearing new and clean. He said that Daniel was, this is interesting. He says Daniel was dressed nice, wearing some sort of bright or reflective work shirt and boots. He was dressed nice, but was wearing a vest. It seems kind of odd. He said that Daniel was moving things. And this is interesting. He said he was moving things from the back seat. So clearly Daniel was supposedly stopped and in the back, in the back door. Sorry, that motorcycle is going to kill me. In the rear hatch area of his Jeep, and he noticed he was missing part of his arm. Bill went on to say that he asked Daniel if he needed any help. He said, no, I'm okay. Bill said that Daniel didn't appear to be stuck, but also seemed like he didn't want to ask for help. Bill explained that Daniel was very friendly, which I find odd. He says he was very friendly, and his behavior didn't seem odd to him. And then Bill said that he jokingly seemed like a guy who was working and just needed to find a place out of sight to smoke. Bill told Daniel that he was out looking for a place to shoot and asked Daniel if he knew any locations. And Daniel said he was at a job work site just close by. Let me move on to the next page here.
When was this report taken?
This was, I want to say, I've got the exact date. I want to say months after. So they had already found the vehicle. It was that year, same year, but towards later on. I could probably tell you right after the show, Steve. But it was after they found the vehicle. And I think a month or two after.
That's pretty good memory to remember they had on boots and a reflective shirt, and the vehicle was new and clean. And so that takes care of the wreck that happened 11 miles. So,
and it's going to get
only
stranger.
900 yards away.
I'm telling you, this gets stranger, Steve. This is going to pique your interest. Now, remember,
he's already piqued my interest because he knows, if I talk to you 2 months from now, I can't tell you what type of shoes you wore when we were in Texas together.
Right.
Do you remember what type of shoes I had on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Don't ask me.
That's not something that's odd.
Yeah. So now he supposedly said that he was out there with his daughters during that time. He was out there with his daughters, and he was looking for a place basically so he could shoot. His daughters shoot, and they do competitive shooting. And so according to Bill, that he was out there with his daughters and they were looking for a place to shoot. He came across Daniel, see if he know any BLM land. Actually, no, so he ran into Daniel, and then after that he runs into the rancher, which happens to be the same rancher that would actually find the vehicle. So he runs into this rancher, and he asks him the same thing, some directions to the BLM land where he could shoot. Bill was farther southeast along a ridge line, and while spotting through his scope, observed a vehicle similar to Daniel's about 2.9 miles southwest from his first place he saw him. So not only has he seen him once and ran into him, he apparently now has seen him twice southwest from the first time he saw him. The vehicle was on the west side of the wash and was driving away. He explained that he was not sure if it was Daniel, only he said that it appeared to be a similar vehicle. Bill said that he does not watch a lot of news, but Joe finds something interesting out in a minute. Said that he doesn't know about this case until several months after seeing Daniel. But when he saw the news report, he immediately recognized him and remembered being there in the area. So according to Bill, as he saw Daniel's story on the news, and so months later, and then called up the detective, and it's like, oh, hey, I ran into this guy. So here's, that's kind of his story. Second interview with Bill. So we have 3 interviews. That's all we're going through. So I'll be pretty quick here. And then we'll get into comments. During the course of my investigation, I obtained a verified location data to Daniel's Jeep and phone. So now they know, where Daniel's phone and Jeep's, last movements were according to the black box and GPS. So on 10/06, 2022, so this would be a year later, they get a hold of Billy. They go to Billy's residence. God, I think this is exactly a year later. He brings his partner with him, the 2 detectives. They notice right away upon entering his house, they observe Billy's gold-colored special agent badge laid out on the counter, as if it was meant for me to see. Just let me know if you want to add anything in. Let's see. I found this odd as an intertribal marijuana group which Billy works for only works out of Nevada and California, not Arizona. Billy explained how he primarily works from home. I advised Billy that I'd been working on this case daily for the last year, but need to close some gaps in the timeline. Billy went through his story about seeing Daniel on the 23rd. Billy said he went out in the desert, told the same story with his daughter shooting airsoft guns. He was driving his Ford Ranger 4x4, which I observed parked in front of his residence. Trying to go fast. He said he stopped at the Shell station before he went out, which is this Shell station is actually kind of northeast of the job site. And then he entered the desert. He described how he entered the desert at the Cap Road just south of the gas station. He traveled for a bit, then got out to scope different areas to shoot. He explained that his daughters shoot competitively, so he likes to find challenging spots for them to shoot. Billy explained that he traveled along the east side of the Hassayampa, heading south in his scouting activities. And the car was found kind of basically west, almost directly west of this Hassayampa site. Billy then said it was about noon he ran into Daniel, which is about what he said last time. I think he said 11:30. He explained that Daniel was parked under a brush in some shade again, and it seemed like someone was just looking for a place to smoke. Billy said the vehicle, okay, this is interesting. Billy said that Daniel was moving a tan box or another object from one place to another in the vehicle. Because remember, I told you can kind of see like a little, either, package box, UPS box, whatever you want to call it, packaging box, that was in his vehicle. So I think that's interesting. Okay, let me move my spot here. Okay, so he said the vehicle was about 10 to 15 yards away when he first saw him. Billy told me in the past this spot was about 0.7 miles, so half a mile from straight line from the crash site is where he saw him, which is kind of interesting. But that's where he said he saw him.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll
9
get to
football fields.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay. There we go. While reviewing, let's see. Oh, this was at the end. What do I got at the top here? Okay, so Billy would correct. I don't know if it was Billy or the investigator, but apparently the daughters were not with him. So this is how he quotes it. He says that usually his daughters come with him, but his daughters weren't there that day. So I don't know if that was a mess up by the police. They fixed that, but they say that he's usually with his girls looking for targets, but that day he was alone on the trip. So nobody else to corroborate his story. They eventually get a search warrant for his phone because they want to see if, like you were talking about, Steve, they'd get a search warrant to match up what he would say, correct?
Oh yeah, because they were pretty specific. They had the coordinates, and you don't get those coordinates without some type of search.
Right. So they get a search warrant. They would end up actually pulling Bill over, and during a traffic stop, I think his wife was with him, according to this. Yeah. And he does end up handing the phone over, and he does give over his cell phone and his laptop. They do recover that. Let's kind of fast forward here. Okay, so this is interesting. Skipping down. I told him that I had left him multiple messages, this is from the detective, and an email about coming in for a polygraph. He told me that he had contacted a lawyer who told him not to take a polygraph, but he would provide his phone and computer without issue. What's your experience on that, Steve, if they say no to a polygraph?
Well,
I mean, I know
yeah,
not everybody's guilty, but I would probably say no too, but
I've used polygraph. I don't have a lot of faith in some of the polygraphs and things, but one of the indicators, and typically that people, they put a lot more faith in what a polygraph does and says. Of course, if you spoke to an attorney, there's no attorney in the world that will ever tell you to take a polygraph. And some people, you can't read into it because some people just have no, they fear what law enforcement will do with the polygraph. And some people just distrust the government. So
yeah,
I really don't put a lot of faith in what individuals, just like when people say that they weren't acting right, their emotions of their loved one when they pass, or that they didn't act right. And I put that the polygraph issues on about the same level. That some people will take them. Some people are insulted by even being hinted that you're going to question their word. So, and so I really don't put a lot of weight in the polygraph issues. But that's just my personal belief.
Okay. I noticed I missed Where the Wind Blows. There are 5 different police reports. Thank you so much, Where the Wind Blows. If I can find your thing, it skipped by. Thank you so much for the $2. And Jennifer, thank you so much for the 13 months. Gosh, that's crazy. It's been that long. Okay, just a little bit more on Billy. Now, obviously, he was with his wife when they did this traffic stop. She advised that Billy does not have any other cell phones, only his laptop. We currently had in our possessions. She shut down and unplugged Billy's laptop, which she had volunteered. Oh, I think they followed him to the house. That's what they did. So they pulled him over, and I think they went to the house. So they recovered his laptop. No other phones belonging to Billy were located at the house. In the room with the laptop, I observed a photograph, several air rifles and handguns, and other components related to those items. This is interesting. Detectives at the residence made contact with Billy's wife, Dawn. Once cleared from the traffic stop, I then made my way to the house, to get the stuff. And okay. Oh, I already read that. I spoke with Dawn briefly and asked her thoughts on Billy, if he would lie about seeing Daniel in the desert that day he went missing. She said no and went on to explain she was sitting down watching TV with Billy the day he saw the news report with Daniel's pictures. And then remember, he doesn't really watch the news, but apparently he's watching the news now. She said that Billy reacted excitedly, saying that he had seen Daniel. I asked her what Billy told her about it. She said that he basically said that he thought Daniel was out of place because he had nice clothes on, and his interactions was a quick "Are you okay?" and a thumbs up. That's so weird to me. So he tells his wife that I remember him because he had nice clothes on. But we've seen, unless he changed after the wreck, he's supposed to have jeans, a black, and a vest on. I mean, is that nice clothes? I mean, unless this guy just doesn't have big, high standards. I when I think nice clothes, I think, a suit. I don't even have to be a suit, but a plaid shirt, something. But a vest on, jeans, just weird. Okay.
I mean, I don't know what that means either right now. I'm gonna have to look at the full report.
Oh God, it's something else. All right, we're almost done. So they would do the data on the phone and the laptop. They didn't find anything. Now this is what's interesting is they did the cell phone on this guy. There was no data on it that showed him that he was ever there. So they don't know if he was ever there at all or he has another phone. So they couldn't corroborate or exclude him. So that's kind of interesting. Then they'd have a final, and this was this year. This was a couple of weeks ago, almost 5/22. He met with Billy for a third time. And this is where his story changed because he knew something was up with Billy. Billy handed him a track phone. So get this. Billy hands me a track phone Moxie mobile Wi-Fi hotspot and charger. He's apologetic. They meet at some truck stop or Flying J or something like that. I'm trying to go through it here. But basically, in a nutshell, is he opted not to take the polygraph because he wasn't sure about his story and he kind of second-guessed himself. And he could have been off about the location and time of where he saw Daniel. But the detective was like, well, what are you doing inserting yourself into my investigation? Why are you doing this? And let's see. I reminded Billy that the first statement he had gave about the account was up close, meaningful encounter with Daniel. Now, when I challenged him about the new data with the second interview, because now the data says he wasn't even there, he says now that his meeting was in passing at a distance. So basically, now he's changing his story. So he didn't see him up close. He saw him kind of in passing. And so he pointed some people out while they were sitting at the interview, in a car. And he pointed out 40 feet away and said, yeah, that's how far he was when we interacted. And he's like, well, how can you speak from that far away? He said that I talked loudly from his truck. And they supposedly had a little high by and in passing 30, 40 feet away. And so this detective, that was kind of it. Ultimately, the story was different from what he described from the first time. So
I know what my next question would be this week
tell me.
from Billy.
Yeah.
Is, I'd ask Billy, I'd go do a fourth interview with Billy and say, those people you pointed at the gas station on May the 22nd, 2023, what was the clothing they were wearing? What were they tennis shoes, boots, or otherwise? And if he could tell me those items, then I might believe him. But Billy would have issues with me right now.
That's like I said, I was going through that on Friday, and I just got a 128-page report, and I was trying to do it in 5 hours, and plus build a timeline. I just couldn't get everything together. So let's look at, and then we'll get to some comments. And if you have some questions, now would be a good time to put them in, because I don't think I'm going to have enough time to go through them all. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat now. I know a lot of people have questions for Steve. And so, just realizing you guys can't see this because I got it on the wrong screen. Come on. Get over there. But I wanted to show you where Billy said he saw him, which is interesting. We'll zoom in here. Okay, everybody can see this. Jilly says, sounds like Letitia Stott. Yeah. All these different stories. Renegade says, Billy changes his story more than I changed my clothes. Yeah, it's something fishy about him. I know a lot of people are looking at Kenneth. Right now, just from the report, he just from prior incidences where people insert themselves like this. So this is where he pointed out on a map. This is where he said he saw him. So this is where so let's just kind of do a little thing here. So here's the main highway. You would take this to come in. Here's the T junction. You would travel up here. This is the job site. Now, apparently, according to Kenneth, after he left, he saw him go ahead westbound down this road, which would lead, I guess if he came down up in here, there's a road that actually funnels right into where his car would be found. Now, remember, Billy says he was driving in a wash. So for those that probably followed my channel may know what a wash is. It's kind of where a dried up river, where water runs through and it carves out what's basically a wash, a little small canyon. This is the wash here. It kind of goes north, south, east, west a little bit. But according to this Billy guy, he said he was in this wash. Now that does make sense because now with a wash, because when you're shooting, Steve, right, you would prefer a back. Is it called a backdrop, or do you have what would you name something where you want earth?
It just seems like a backstop.
Backstop. Okay.
Burn,
so a wash would be perfect.
Things like that.
Yeah. So a wash would be a great place to do shooting because you got the perfect backstop. But he says he's seen, this is where he supposedly pointed on the map, where he saw him on that day at 11:30. And what's interesting, they did a bunch of searches, but they also did a cadaver dog search. And I know you can't put a lot of stock into cadaver dogs, but that's where they actually, because it's in the notes, that's where they picked up a cadaver scent right there. That was kind of interesting. It's not too far from where, I'm sure this is probably not accurate. Neither one's probably exact, but the fact that they're so close to each other, it's kind of, I don't know. To me, it's a little interesting. But that's where they got a hit, apparently, one of the times. So, final thoughts, Steve, and then I'll go through some questions.
No, it's extremely interesting. Why would he turn right versus unless he had a meeting? And what's on his phone, text messaging, had him and Billy ever crossed paths before? There's a lot of unanswered stuff that I'm looking forward to after the show of what else you have.
Yeah, I'll send you to the report. And Renegade, the rancher said Daniel's Jeep wasn't there a few days before he found the Jeep. That's so strange. And the fact that, I'll pull it up one more time. I mean, this is where his job site was. And they were in the helicopter days later, day or two later, I'm not sure. And I'm assuming they would have to do at least a 2-mile grid in a 360 type environment or something close to it. I've actually seen the thing.
Have you typed in the coordinates and see where they pop up on Google Maps?
Where what pops up?
The Billy's coordinates are where he met with him. That's in the report.
Where he saw where Billy said he saw Daniel. Yeah, this is it. This is the coordinates.
This is the coordinate.
Yeah.
And the cadaver dogs hit how far from there?
Right there. Yeah.
On Google Maps, how many feet's that?
Now, keep in mind, he's pointing on a map. He's seeing this wash and saying, "Yeah, it's close to this wash."
Well, I know, but law enforcement gave specific coordinates.
They did, yeah.
And that's where that pin is.
Yep, yeah. Both of these are exact what's in the notes. These are exact coordinates.
That's a big coincidence.
That's what I was saying. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh my God, this is so weird."
Yeah, because and then the vehicle is how far from that?
Not far, not too far from that. That's what I'm saying. There's a story there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up those coordinates, and I'll look at your map, and I'll pull some measurements. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I could pull it up just real quick here. If you wanted in yards, two football fields.
200 yards, and how far to the vehicle?
About 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I said 900, so that's about
Yeah, as the crow flies.
0.56, so yeah, it was almost 0.6 of a mile. So yeah, it'd be closer to 1,000. I'm sorry.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting. So let's see if we get some questions here. There's a mountain lion sighting near there. Ooh, we got mountain lions. Speaking of which, I was looking for Aiden Clune, and yeah, he's got that as well. If you would cover the text Daniel exchanged with his siblings on 36, this was the night before Daniel went missing. I would love to hear Steve's thoughts. Let's do it.
Yeah, anytime you have conversations with family, looking in from the outside, you'd have to have a victimology to compare what was the normal talk between the two. I have no idea what was mentioned that night, but you'd have to have a baseline of how did he normally interact with family members, and was there something out of the way that was alarming to them. But I would be glad to look at that, but without a baseline, it'd be hard to understand some of them. unless there's
Oh,
just something absolutely outrageous about it.
okay. So this is the girlfriend. Oh, this is Davisha and the. Is there okay? Let me read you. If you would cover the text Daniel exchanged with the siblings. Okay, so this is with his sister. Yeah, this is interesting.
Okay.
So this is the day before. This is 6/22. So this is on a Tuesday. So 16/21. So that's 4/21. So 4/21. From his sister to, or no, it's Daniel. Daniel to his sister. It's an emergency. Now remember, earlier this day is when he wrote that weird text message, the last text message to that girlfriend saying, did I ever play that? I didn't get a chance to. Oh, okay. Well, I'll stick with this. Anyway, he sent one last little weird text message to her on that day, this same day. Okay, so now it's later in the day, speaking with Davisha. Davisha says, hey, I called. Are you okay? Seriously, are you okay? Then Davisha calls Daniel. Call log shows answered and call lasted 1 minute and 16 seconds. So it was a pretty short call. Then shortly after that call, just literally minutes, Davisha goes, hey, I'm getting worried. I'm not mad, just confused. I had a bad dream a few days ago, but I didn't tell. Daniel, please be safe. I love you. Please answer. I'm sorry. Davisha logs call 10 missed calls, no outbound calls between 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. a little after. These calls came from Daniel's sisters, so some other family members. Davisha reached out to Daniel's friends and other family to try and check on him. This was consistent with her statement on Daniel's behavior the day before he went missing. Daniel's brother RJ sent 2 text messages. So same thing, day before. This is just later on in the day. So now it's 4:32. RJ to Daniel, ? Hey, so I'm sure you know Davisha told me about tonight. You don't have to talk about anything right now, but can you please call me tomorrow at some point? Can you do me a favor and maybe acknowledge this message? You worried me a bit, and I just want to see if I can help you in any way. Love you. In the search item categories, I observed several Google searches between 6:16 and 6:23, and those are the ones that I talked about. Should I call her? Can I break the lease? Love changed me. Love is patience. 10 Commandments. Delete Instagram account, which is one last thing we'll have to finish on. So thoughts on that, Steve?
Now, this is about a month prior to him going missing?
No, this is the day before he went missing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
6/22.
The vehicle wasn't found until July.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He went missing on 23rd. This all happened on the 22nd.
Okay. Yeah. I still have to talk to the family to get a little bit of understanding of how he interacted with other breakups. And,
right.
Was he that's a great, one that, and what was his mental state as far as had he ever tried to any self-harm or things of that nature? I have no idea about it. But that'd be interesting information you would get from the victimology. And I mean, just on the face value of it, yes, you can see that it would be extremely concerning. Just from the reading these, that it is very concerning, and I can see where you would have that there is that issue that you'd have to look at. And so we just have to weigh it for what it is right now. I'll look at it and break it down, and we'll get together and do something about it.
Yeah, we'll have to do a part 3. I'm sure everybody would like this. I have Apophis. Sorry, I've done searches in helicopters. Interesting. That Jeep is easily spotted. Yeah, if anything, that orange vest I would think would stick out. You were specifically searching ravines during searches. Right. Yeah, you would. That makes sense. Yeah, so weird. And then supposedly, so not only the helicopter, but the rancher didn't see this vehicle. That is weird. It's very weird. Any more questions? I'm going to go ahead and close this out. See if I missed anything. We'll see if you got any more questions. Please put them in now.
Well, I mean, if your intent is self-harm, you're not worried about how to break a lease.
Ooh, good. Right. Yeah. And one thing is a lot of his social media was deleted. Just gone, wiped. Which is interesting. I don't know which way that points.
Yeah.
But I think that's weird that just to wipe your whole Instagram and some other social media accounts is really weird.
Yeah. Now I'll look at that and look at the whole report and see. But that is interesting, and that was some interesting interactions. But the sister had the bad dream. It wasn't Daniel that had the bad dream, correct?
Yes, it was the sister that had the bad dream, right? And then there was just that weird little. So one of the last messages he sent to Caitlin, which was that girl that he got into, but she wasn't into him, and the message he sent to her on that same day, the 22nd, earlier that day, was something here. Matter of fact, let me just pull it up so I don't misquote it here before we finish up here. So he sends a message at 3:07. The world can get better, but I'll have to, and this is the last text message to this Caitlin, who just told him, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not into you. Please stop showing up. I don't feel the same way. So he says, the world can get better, but I'll have to take all the time I can, or we can, whatever to name it. I'll either see you again or never see you again. So little strange. Either I'll see you again or never see you again. Kind of odd.
It is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I unplugged my mic. Okay. Before we go, last chance. Miss Siren, love Chris and Steve taking interest in this case. Thank you so much, Miss Siren, for the $5. That helps us out so much. Thank you, Steve, with the blue light. So awesome. Can you let us see the text to his sister? Yeah, I just read that. So got through that. Desert 444s. Thank you so much. Thank you for covering this case. I would not be in a wash in the rain monsoon season. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have similar, because I live in Utah, so I'm close, I'm a neighbor. And we have similar conditions, but we don't get a lot of rain, especially out in our deserts. So I don't know if it's different out there or not. Be kind of curious to know that, though. But
I mean, he's an expert on on that type of interactions of what happens in washes and rains and the earth and everything else. He knows the dangers, probably more than and better than anyone that would in the area.
Yeah. Let's see here. A lot of thank yous. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you to all of my mods. Losing my voice again. Molly Thompson, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. You are so awesome. Please show Molly and everybody that's donated some love in the chat. It really helps their channels. And then one more time, if you just popped in, the link to Steve's channel is pinned at the top. if you would like to donate to the nonprofit foundation, the website link is at the pinned at the top as well. That goes into supporting our trips where we go out. Steve is just about to go out again, and I'll be out there not too long from that as well. So
yeah, we got a trip in July to Iowa.
Okay, let me just double check my phone. Steve, you got any final thoughts?
No, I'm looking forward to getting all the information and looking at it a little bit closer, because it is very intriguing, and there are issues. Not saying that, but anytime you have someone that notices or is within a certain distance of an individual within a certain time period and has details months later, it is very interesting. We saw that with Brenner.
Yeah. So with what you've seen, if you could, if you want to share, you don't have to. If you had to point one way, accident or suspicious.
Right now, absolutely suspicious. You have to look at it from that standpoint. You don't want to jump, as long as you leave it open-ended, it can go either, and whatever the evidence takes us of what the cumulative values of all the information, that's going to tell you which direction to go. You just can't write it off instantly that, oh, it's self-harm or it's an accident. You have to approach it with that it's suspicious, and it is suspicious until we have all the and give weight to each of the values that as we analyze this information. Because, like I said, I've learned a lot today about this case that I never even saw.
I appreciate you taking the time. Yes, Billy said he's an IT guy. So that's the weird thing is Billy's supposedly this anti-marijuana guy. He's got this badge, and supposedly Daniel's smoked pot. It's weird. And then he did this Instacart driving. Did he run into some bad people when he did an Instacart thing? Because that Instacart's like, you know what I'm talking about, Steve? The DoorDash. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did he deliver and meet some bad people? And
they could be. And then, like I said, we also have to look at those text messages, and but that would be answered through the victimology of and his history of how he, like I said, he may have been rejected 10, 20, 30 times. I mean, people that date, and I don't know what his dating history is, and it may not have been a big deal to him.
Yeah.
And that may have been a common theme that, okay, I may see you next week, or I may never see you again. I mean, how many times had he texted that in his life? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Trying to get out of a lease could be considered putting one's affairs in order. Classic sign of ideation. Yeah. I guess you could look at it 2 different ways if you want to say that. Yeah, I guess it depends. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying though.
Yeah. I mean,
possible.
Yeah. There's no concrete in anything, but
sure.
You have to weigh all the values. Like I said, but we don't know. I don't know that much about the family right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get our outro ready. Steve, thank you so much for coming on. I'll send you the stuff, and we'll get back with you here in the backstage here in just a second. So thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. Thank you.
I'll put Steve backstage here for a minute. Just one more time, please hit that like button before you go. Shout out to Renegade and I forget the other. I just had it up there. And Mama, I forget the. Where'd it go? I just had you up there, but thank you guys so much for sharing your guys' comments and thoughts on this. And I'll definitely have to go check out your guys' channel and see what you guys have. I'm sure it's great. So thank you to everybody that took the time to watch the show. I'm going to go ahead and play the outro, which is our pets. Once a month, we have people our viewers send in our pets, and then I make them into outros. So we're going to go ahead and play that now, and we will see you guys Wednesday. Love you guys. Have a great rest of the day.